The thing with the Nintendo Switch 2 that I think is the most interesting is that feeling of like, yeah, wait, oh, I can't wait. But wait a second. And so let's go with the first one that I see. The first thing that I see that is really interesting, that I'm really excited for, but then kind of struck with this, like, this is a weird trade-off, is memory, right? So this is not my favorite. I'm not going in order of favorites, but like memory. Internal storage, not memory, internal storage. We're hit with the increase, a 4-time increase, 64 gigs on the OLED, 32 originally. We're hit with the 64, right? That is a 4, it's up to 256, so that's 4x, but it's with microSD Express as an expansion option as well, which is a very underutilized microSD format. People don't use microSD Express that often. That is not a super common format to use for microSD. MicroSD Extreme is enough. MicroSD Express is weird, just like CFast cards for different cameras. Like, these are really weird formats. They write faster, they read faster, all this stuff. But it's really interesting that the device would go and use this external storage increase that is so big. And I'm like, that's an interesting choice, right? I'm not gonna sit here and curse Nintendo because that's not what I do. I don't curse anybody. It's just a really bizarre and interesting choice to go with the micro SD, right? And we'll get into some other stuff. Let's go form factor. We got a bigger form factor with everything there, a bigger display, right? 120 hertz. We also have, what is it? HDR. It's LCD, right? Interesting choice. With that bigger display, that bigger thing, we have more portable enjoyment because the bigger display, bigger handles, everything that you're holding on to, better ergonomics because it's bigger is awesome. But the battery life is somehow less than the OLED, which is an interesting thing, right? And then also we have some stuff that goes on with pricing structure, of course, but when it comes to the actual the Joy-Cons themselves, taking them off, magnetic releases with the little foot things that you can put on it to make it a mouse mode. Like, these features are really interesting and really exciting in their own right. And you know, the mouse thing I think is going to be more interesting to see how it holds, because I don't know how they're going to hold on to the whole mouse gaming after launch. Is it going to be a supported format that we're actually going to see continuous uses, or is it going to be a not so supported format where we see some like gimmicky things from Nintendo? But like, I'll say this. I hope that they don't treat it like the motion controls that we got from Wii. How you had games like Skyward Sword and a really incredible Zelda game to some people. I've watched it, have a hard time playing it because of that, but they force motion controls. And so you're having to sit there and swipe around and use the Wii Mote and Nunchuck to be like, hey, yeah, look at me go. Like, I hope that it's always optional, because as time goes on, that's the thing with a lot of these Nintendo gimmicks, is that some of them are just a little bit, I would say, they're in the realm where I would prefer an option to play conventionally. I mean, sitting here and looking at this guy, this is probably one of the best handhelds I've ever used. And I say that because it is a handheld. It's not trying to be anything else. It's not trying to be an interactive device. It's not trying to be a communication device. It's not trying to be a PC. It is a handheld gaming device. SteamOS is on it. It's a closed system. The system is great. The system does its thing. It's fine. It's not trying to make anything happen. And so with that, I'm like, cool. This is a gaming device. So when I pick it up, it's games. And that is nice. With the Switch, I look at it the same way, but when it started, they really wanted you to use the Joy-Cons in a silly way. Super Mario Odyssey, they really wanted you to throw the Joy-Cons around, right? They really wanted you to do that thing. And so for me, I'm like, cool. I always want to have that option. I just want to make sure that the games, though they may support mouse control, they don't require you to use it. They don't require you to blow into the microphone. They don't require you to do these things. These are just added features for immersion, but not necessary for the gameplay. Because I feel like once games start forcing you to use some of these gimmicks, for me, for instance, that's when you lose me. Kind of like with the DS, with some of the Zelda games that are there, right? What is it? Phantom Hourglass. You have to use the touchpad, the stylus to move Link. I actually welcome it personally, but I can see how that game style in and of itself would push people away from an otherwise kind of fun game. And I think that that's something that Nintendo, I don't know, like forcing people into a specific movement mechanic. That Mario Party game, the first Mario Party Superstar, I think is what it was. That Mario Party game was one where it was super fun, but the problem with that Mario Party game, which was always the problem, was that it forced you to use motion controls or a Joy-Con to play the game. And that was like, I don't know. And then they come out with Super Mario Party Jamboree, and that game is through the roof. It's one of the best Mario Party games out there. I might have named the wrong Mario Party That Makes You. But yeah, I mean, someone over on YouTube says the battery is larger in size, but has shorter span due to not being OLED and the extra horsepower being used on those smooth frames. Hoping we get graphic options. Yeah, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure how they're going to go about the graphic options. It is definitely interesting that battery life is going to be, the performance of the battery is going to be a little bit less. All these things just kind of put itself together to be this weird proposition where the device itself is on paper better. The games are going to run better. We have better things. But additionally, we're starting to see different things happen, right? We're starting to see the implementation of more digital games or digital game keys on physical carts, something that is not at all foreign to PlayStation, Xbox. These are things that have already existed. These things that this in tandem create this weird back and forth of like, okay, cool, interesting. And I think from like, I would say more of a big picture perspective, a lot of these moves are necessary in a lot of ways. I don't know the Express situation. The memory part for me is always kind of, it stumps me. I didn't even know that microSD had an Express card. SD Express is normal, but microSD Express is really interesting. Really interesting. And so that is thing. And then finally we have the price, right? And Steven over on YouTube asks, what are your thoughts on the price of games? I think a lot of people are overreacting. Sony has been doing this since the PS5 version, their PS4 as of late, i.e. Horizon, Last of Us, Days Gone. And Tunnel Rat over on Twitch also says, people want OLED, but OLED would just price it out even more for people. Yeah, I would say pricing, right? The price structure of games with their explanation of variable pricing is I would say to keep it on brand. I'm going to say it's an interesting proposition. The idea that it is not an objective price point or a standardized price point. It is a variable price point based on the amount of value a game has, perceived value or replayability, which I think is really choice words. And again, I'm trying not to fall into the trap of running with the crowd. But I'm not going to sit back and also be naive to the fact that saying something like variable pricing on games that are priced a little higher, we get it. I understand what that means. That means that this is a game that you know is going to be played more, so you know you can ask for more because the game will hold its playability. I appreciate the idea and the sentiment as long as the deliverables are there. If they're like, we know that this game is going to be replayable, it better be, right? It better not be a one and done. You know, like replayability, great, awesome. I welcome it. I also see that as like, what's the criteria? Is there a specific campaign length that increases the price? Is it a threshold? Is it multiplayer games? With that price increase, does that also include DLCs? What is it? Like, what is the criteria? I would like to know the criteria. I think my biggest the dissonance I feel the most with the Switch 2 isn't one of like frustration. It's more one of communication. This has been a really odd release. There's been a lot of information around the device itself, but all the information that has been more challenging to accept, a little bit more controversial, has been discovered rather than announced. And I don't know what the reason behind that is. Also, we're in a really interesting political, economic, there's a lot going on worldwide. And so I'm not going to detach that from the equation. I know there's stuff going on. And so because all of that, this whole experience has been really, I think, there's been a cloud of uncertainty, a cloud of ambiguity that has otherwise kind of stolen from that joy. And some people have used that cloud as a springboard to create and stir up pandemonium. I don't love that. But others, maybe have tried to disregard the cloud. That for me is also something that's, I think at first I did, but now I'm trying to, objectively do a little bit of back and forth. I'm not sure. Fabu on YouTube says Nintendo could have bumped to 70 flat and walked away to the bank. $20 increase is tough. I do think Mario Kart is worth 80, but seems most don't. It's just an interesting concept. Variable pricing as a whole is just an interesting concept. It's a really bizarre proposition. I'm not for or against it as long as the proposition that they're suggesting, which is replayability, high value titles, and worthwhile experiences, is delivered on. If that's the case, that is what it is, right? I'm fine with it. We'll have to wait and see. I can't make any judgments. Saying that if Nintendo does it, the whole industry is going to shift and people aren't going to play video games, I'm also not going to say that. That's pretty sensational, especially since we've seen an uprise of AA and indie titles and these big games coming out that are priced very fairly, some underpriced, and people saying, this is an incredible value. Like, I think that as a whole, we'll have to wait and see. A lot of this is just wait and see. We have to really understand that this is uncharted territory in the gaming industry. This shift and this ambiguity is leaving a lot of space for people to speculate, and the internet and speculation are people's very, very favorite things to do, especially when you're a YouTube channel that can capitalize on speculation. And so for me, there's a lot of weight, but I think that Marquez and his team and what they talked about resonated with me, of this idea of there is a lot of slingshotting, which is right? And for me, it is definitely not a I'm not going that far. So Ace says, I'm just hoping that variable pricing doesn't mean every game is 70 and some are 80 to 90. If they use this to exercise the first party $40 to $50 range for some games, and need games like Kirby and Forgotten Lands to come to mind, then I think it can be good. I just don't trust Nintendo to do that. I think variable pricing to them means new normal 70, and some of our best ones will be closer to 100. We'll have to wait and see. I'm not going to make that because Bravely Default is 40. And so, we'll see, right? We'll see. It is a Switch 2 title. It is coming to the Switch, $40, right? And so that is we're already kind of seeing that thing. Styles XP says the thing with Nintendo saying variable pricing is that they're hypocritical when it comes to how much they charge, because if that were the case, their games would never go on sale. It's super rare. I don't know how that's hypocritical. And so Doc, what's up? Yeah, I just, Sweet says, I won't be paying over 60 for standard release games. Premium products like CES and LEs are a different story, though. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and just give up on it and be like, nope, no premium games over 60. I don't think that $60 is a magic number. I don't think that $49.99 was a magic number. I don't think that $69.99 is a magic number. I don't think that $299 for a console is a magic number. I don't think there's an arbitrary magic number. For me, perceived value has to do with experience. And for people who are like, I'm just going to wait to buy on sale, they have a perceived value of a game that the standardized price is closer to $30, waiting for a sale. And so that is something that I think is far more realistic, to kind of see where you're at, right? I know people who are like, oh, I only buy Steam because I only buy on sale. Well, it's because the perceived value is there. You look at games, you're like, I will never pay over, $30 or full price for a game, because you don't see that the value's there. Meanwhile, I would pay, and I have paid well over $100 for a game DLC early access, right? And so that for me is a very, very big thing, is understanding how I view perceived value. And with that perceived value, when it comes to purchasing games, what game is appropriately priced, right? I'm not going to sit back and accuse a company of pricing a specific way and be like, oh, this is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous that they would do this. I can't do that because I don't know. If they would have told me that Mario Kart 8 would have received hundreds of hours from my playthrough, so much so that I've played it with everybody I know, gone back and played through the whole series, and they would have charged me $70, $80, $90, I'd be like, the value's there. I've played that game daily at times, at least monthly, for the entirety of the life cycle. And this game technically is a Wii U release, right? I've played it. It has maintained value to me, right? $60 is not a magic number. $60 is not some magic number that exists. It is honestly, prices are arbitrary, right? It doesn't matter the price, right? Inflation, whatever. I'm not even going to go into that, because inflation, we go, the reason is that, no, I'm not going to go into the reason, because at the end of the day, it's your wallet you have to pay. But I don't subscribe to the idea that there is a magic number that should be attached to titles. AAA should be 60. AA should be no more than 40. Indies shouldn't break 30. No, this is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Because some indies are well worth the full price tag, right? Sea of Stars. If they charge $60 for Sea of Stars, they absolutely deserve it. That game is incredible. I also feel similar about Eastward. If they would have charged $60 for Eastward, I would have said, this is absolutely worth it. And to be like, they're bringing up the price properly to match the systems. I don't think that Nintendo is actually looking at other systems, because the argument that Nintendo is looking at Xbox and PlayStation to price accordingly is out the window when you see the pricing structure of their games. I think what they're doing is they're looking at the device, they're looking at the games, and they're saying, how much can we appropriately charge for what we think it's worth to, one, make the most profit, because we know people are going to play this game, so let's push the boundary a little bit, let's get a little saucy, and also, we value it at that. I don't think the $80 price tag, what I think is a predatory, I'm going to finish with this. What I think is predatory when it comes to, because it's like gaming or their price structure is predatory. Here's what I think. Predatory pricing structures is actually cheaper. I think that if gaming companies priced at like $50, that's predatory, because it's just low enough for you not to think before you buy it. It is not predatory to ask for more. Because when you ask for more, you create a little bit more of resistance. Cheaper games are predatory, and I'm gonna finally bring it to this perspective. How many of you with Steam accounts, even Nintendo Switch accounts, have purchased at least a dozen games because it was inexpensive? Not because you necessarily were like, I can't wait to play this, but because it was inexpensive. For those of us who are using Steam and have used Humble Bundle, how many of you have spent the extra $3 to get 400 games from a publisher that you only were intending on ever playing one of them? How many of you guys go to the grocery store or go to Target or something and say, if you spend $10 extra, you get $5 off? These are predatory. These types of things are actually more predatory tactics. Get someone to spend more. This is the type of thing that corporations start to do, to be like, how can we? You go to the grocery store and you see that extra candy bar at the right next to the state to buy stuff. Do you know what that section is called? Right in front of the cash register, where there's little snacks, single serve snacks, single serve bottles. Do you know what that's called? That section is defined as impulse. When you go to a grocery store and start marketing, setting up a grocery store, they call those impulse items. Why impulse? Because you don't think about it. It is an impulse. Oh, I'm just gonna buy this for $2.99, when I could have bought 4 for $6 if I would have gone to the drink section. But no, this is cold and it is in front of me right now. So I'm going to spend twice the amount on this one Red Bull, right? These kinds of things, I think, are the predatory tactics that we find ourselves getting into. And Nintendo is going to see a lot less mindless purchasing with pricing structures that are higher. So I don't think it's predatory. Do I think it is them trying to push the boundary to be like, this is this much? Maybe. It's possible. It's definitely possible. It's definitely possible that they're being like, "Yay, we know this thing is gonna crush. Let's get that extra $10 in. Let's ask for $10 extra for some of our biggest titles for upgrades and not include DLC in the pack." Like, yeah, those kind of things are a bummer. I'm like, man, it would have been great if they bundled it together. But by no stretch, not even a little bit, do I see it as predatory. Because predatory it is far more about not thinking, not actually thinking, and just spending without thinking. When you start thinking, you stop buying. And Nintendo's going to find themselves in a position where, in asking for more money, I think they're going to see less sales because less people are going to impulse buy, which that in and of itself is actually anti-predatory, right? Some would call it anti-consumer. I don't see it as that either because I don't think they're pricing in such a way that is trying to push a consumer away. I think they're pricing in such a way where they are finally asking for how much they value. I genuinely believe Nintendo values the game at this price point. And they're not pricing it because they are like, we're going to sneak it in. I think they value it at this price point. I do. I genuinely do. Whether that's right or not, I don't, that's up to you. Let's finish with a couple of these. Ace, my 400 game Steam library would correct me if it was in chat today. Super wants to push back and say, I think that Steam is primarily the one that is predatory with low prices. They run lots and lots of sales on their games, which also causes you to buy because they're limited time. Yeah, that's the kind, since Nintendo never uses sales, I think they've always been less predatory. I think so too. I've mentioned this before. What I love about the idea of buying a Nintendo title is day 1, day 300, and day 3000. The game is the same price. Some people are like, I can't believe that, Mario Kart 8 is still $60. I think it's actually down to $50, but whatever. I can't believe Breath of the Wild, the launch title, still is asking for $60 and DLC is asking for full price. What I like about that is I don't feel like if I want to buy it day 1, I'm going to miss out on $20 off in 4 weeks. That's nice. I like that because it sets expectation. The expectation is that the game is going to cost a certain amount. And I think for me, as someone who spends a decent amount on games, that is very nice to know that I am not going to be coming up with some sort of shortage because I didn't purchase the game and waited. Be punished for day 1 purchase, right? That's what happens with these sales. You feel punished for buying day 1. And that for me has always been something I thought about. Sure, Steam does offer sales on off rip, but for me, sales being something that you don't get with Nintendo, it means like, okay, I'm not going to miss out. Do I wish that games were on sale? Sure, I would love to save that extra $10. I'm not saying that I'm only going to buy wholesale. No, I'm only going to buy full price. No, but I would love that. That'd be great to be on sales, but they don't. And so I know that the expectation's there, and I appreciate consistency. That consistency means as a dad who has a budget, I know what I'm dealing with, right? I know what I'm dealing with. So I don't know. Donkey Kong Returns being 50 on Wii, 30 on 3DS, and 70 on Switch is a bit ridiculous. Donkey Kong Returns isn't 70 on Switch. I think it's 60, right? It's 60 on Switch? Either way, it is more on Switch. They remastered it. It's a Switch title, and they adjusted for the fact that games on Switch are 60. This is what I think the $60 price tag, I think, is what we see more and more of because they just price that way. So with pricing in and of itself, I think that we're going to see an interesting shift. I don't know if it's going to be 70 and 90. I don't know if it's going to be 40, 50, 60, 70. I don't know. We will see what they mean by variable pricing. I don't think we know. I think we can assume. And then if we run with the numbers, then we're going to see. I mean, if we run with the crowd on YouTube, then we're just going to see anger all the time. I'm hoping that this presents something in such a fashion that would potentially cause a little bit more thought provokingness. That's what I do. We have barely scratched the surface of what Mario Kart will have to offer. Direct next week. Yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. Predatory would be FTP Mario Kart, where every character is $20 to unlock. Yeah. That's predatory. Those are predatory tactics. A high upfront cost means that less people are going to buy Mario Kart, which I think is not predatory, right? I'm going to finish with iSuper saying, I'm an indie game dev, and my team is making our first game. Our biggest thing we have to do is find an audience, since we don't have a following yet. We're absolutely planning to have a 20% off launch and discount to get the snowball rolling once launch. Yeah. That's what it is. That's what it is. And so this is going to go up on YouTube. So I'm going to say, play more and be kind. I hope you enjoyed the conversation around pricing. And if you want to come to streams, you should join streams. They're happening often. And so please hop into streams and hang out with us. We are the Brewocracy now. So come join the Brewocracy. All right. I'll see you guys around. Play more and be kind.